What's the biggest family secret you learned by accident? I didn't think a car crash would break my family apart, but it happened on a Sunday. I don't remember much, just glass, pain, and sirens. But they said I lost a lot of blood and needed a transfer because it was life or death. My mom was listed as my emergency contact, so they called her, and she got there fast. She told the nurses to do whatever they had to, and someone donated just in time. They told me I was lucky, and my dad was a perfect match. So when he and my mom walked into the hospital room a few hours later, I looked him right in the eyes and thanked him, but he had no clue what I was talking about, and he asked me what happened. That's when my mom jumped in and told me she'd double check with the nurse to see who donated the blood. Maybe it wasn't who we thought. But later, before they left, she told us that the nurse said it was a random man who rode with me in the ambulance. But then the nurse came back and asked my parents to leave the room for a routine checkup before I leave. She closed the door and told me she shouldn't be telling me this, but it wasn't a stranger who donated the blood. It was my uncle. But I didn't even know he'd been called. I tried to understand why my mom called him instead of dad, and why she hid it. So the moment I got home, I started watching her more closely. She whispered during a phone call and shut her laptop fast when I walked by, so later that day, I asked to borrow her phone to call my girlfriend because my battery was dead. She hesitated, but then gave it to me, so I checked the number she was calling, and it was my uncle's. I wasn't sure what was going on, so that night I pulled hair from my own brush and snuck a strand from my mom's, and one from the jacket my dad always left on the couch. Then I mailed them out for a DNA test. Days passed, and my mom kept acting weird. My dad was normal like usual, and it made me feel worse. But then the results came. My mom was a 99% match, but dad was 0%. My chest got tight, and I couldn't believe it. So the next day I asked dad to get ice cream with me, just the two of us, like when I was little, so I can share with him what I found. But he didn't want to go, and said his old knee injury made it hard to walk for long. But I begged and said we never hang out anymore, and he gave in. We sat at a booth in the corner of the same cafe he used to take me when I was 10, and I wanted to tell him everything, but then he started talking first. He said he missed the good old days back when he was in the military, and mom used to write him letters every week. He told me his favorite memory was the day I was born, because he had to disobey orders just to come and see me. He got thrown in military jail for it, but it was worth it, because seeing and holding me made it all worth it. I stared at him and couldn't say a word, because I came here to ruin his whole world, but instead he gave me the best memory of his, so I didn't tell him. I smiled, paid the bill, and promised we'd do it again. So the next morning I went to my uncle's house. He looked surprised, but he let me in and asked how I was feeling. But I didn't waste time, and told him to cut the act, and asked him how it happened. He sat down and told me everything. He was young and stupid, and mom was lonely back then because dad was gone for service most of the year. One night she called him to fix the sink, but the pipe busted and water went everywhere. They got wet but laughed about it, and one thing led to another. I told him I didn't care. He might be my biological father, but I already had a real dad at home, and if he ever cared about mom, he'd forget this conversation ever happened. I walked out before he could respond, and the next 2 weeks I spent as much time as I could with my dad. He opened up more than ever and told me stories from his old unit, the dumb stunts they pulled with his friends, and the regrets he carried. The day before I left for college, we sat on the porch. He got quiet and looked me in the eyes and asked me to forgive him, but I didn't understand. He told me that story again, about skipping orders to be at the hospital the day I was born. But this time, he told me he never went to military jail. That was a lie he told mom, so he could leave. Because the day after I was born, another woman gave birth to his daughter. He asked me not to tell mom because he didn't want to lose both of us. So I promised him I wouldn't and left for college the next day with the two secrets.